Alrighty. I just discovered something interesting.
Scientists just discovered that Batman improves human behavior. Pro-social behavior or our willingness to help others is central to how societies function, but what triggers people to act generously is still surprisingly unclear. To test some potential influences, researchers in Milan ran a simple set of experiments on public transport. Across multiple trials, they observed how 138 passengers responded when someone clearly in need of a seat entered the train. First, to establish a baseline, a woman who was visibly pregnant stepped onto the carriage and waited. In this control condition, only 37% of passengers offered their seat to the woman in need. Then, the researchers added a single, slightly unusual variable. Everything about the setup remained the same, except that one passenger in the carriage was now dressed as Batman. I'm Batman. That small change alone.
Alright, so this is a phenomena they didn't even need to do an experiment for. So humans are naturally, we're naturally socialist, we're naturally communal, and tribal, granted. That's a big distinction because there's a difference between tribal and universal. For our tribe, we are socialist, we are communal for our tribe. We are not socialist nor communal for anyone else that isn't our tribe or nation, rather, by nature at least. Anyways, um, it's interesting to me. We want to, in this modern age, to show goodwill towards people of the earth and not our own nation. However, we can't even do that because we're so withdrawn from ourselves. We have no love for ourselves socially. So it impacts our ability to love everyone globally, right? Whereas a strong dictatorial national society that truly has an overfixation with itself tends to be a more productive nation with less crime, higher happiness, lower suicide, etc. And that's a nation that will develop a surplus that it can give to other countries without it being at the expense of its own. Reminds me of Oswald Mosley, how he wanted to bring jobs back from the colonies, to Lancashire and all these other textile businesses that used to exist in what was it, Lancashire, and there was another town I can't remember, but yeah, no, all of these businesses in the UK that or Britain at the time, it was just completely destroyed, completely outsourced to foreign sweatshops, as he'd say, those poor devils in Africa, right? And yeah, he wanted to bring jobs back to the nation and focus on Britain, then create a right wing version of the European Union. And then once every European country was unified in a type of European brotherhood, he believed in using the surplus created to build infrastructure in Africa, schools, hospitals, homes, things like that. And that's how you actually help the third world. Instead, we're giving people in Somalia small amounts of drinking water and food. You might be thinking small amounts, we're spending billions. Oh, yes, but it's still not enough. They don't need that. They need actual infrastructure and technology to process, seawater amongst other things. Um, if you're catching up with me. But point is, anyways, as far as social behavior goes, since people don't have a good sense of nationalism, they don't have a good sense of community, they tend to self isolate. They tend to be online. They tend to be in this dormant state, right? People are only really socially aware when they have a collective that's worth engaging with. I mean, if you look at those people on the bus, on the subway, none of them have anything in common. You know, there is no racial commonality, no religious commonality, no commonality whatsoever, right? Which is why you need something like unified clothing, right? If you forced everyone, like, here's the thing: if you want a multiracial society and you want it to, be functional, unlike ours, you need to have everyone wear the same uniform. You have to have people wear the same outfit, you know. But yeah, without that, without creating an artificial binding factor, these people are just going to be withdrawn within themselves. they won't have any genuine purpose, you know? And without purpose, there's no reason to be aware of the pregnant woman on the subway. There's no reason to be aware of anything, right? Um, you know, so you need to keep the senses going, right? Um, you know, and here's the thing. Another factor that could be taken into account is like in a fascist society, when you have a social elite represented through a paramilitary order, like for instance, or yeah, actually we could, this doesn't even apply to fascism, this, but although this is very well known within fascism, this could apply to the Waffen SS, or the Allgemeine SS, but it could also, be applied, I guess, to the communists with like Stasi, or the Kremlin, whatever. The point is, if you have a social elite that's represented by a paramilitary uniform, with strong cultural symbolism, like I guess Batman, basically that arouses a feeling of respect and reverence, and makes you feel like constantly that there are stakes to life, that there is purpose. Because I guess again, the internet is pretty much brain rotting people. That is also part of the social isolation, because people tend to socially isolate online, due to basically a self cannibalizing dopamine cycle that they can't escape from. So I mean, that's one aspect of it at least. But yeah, no, when you have someone that's dressed in a uniform, right, that commands respect, and there's varying levels of this. When I wear a three-piece suit with a hat, I've had people way older than me call me sir, and I'm not a sir. I was born out of wedlock, right? If I go on a public bus, people are more likely to nod their heads, right? So again, we don't have people that dress self-respecting. We have women that don't dress like women, and we have men that don't dress like men. Guilty. I don't dress like a man. I should, but I've become a part of the pollution. I've become a part of the problem, right? But the thing is, when women dress like women, a lot of the times people tend to change their tune, and when people dress like men, they tend to change their tune, right? Well, again, no commonalities. We've become blurred between gender. There's no difference between man and woman anymore. How could you see any difference? We wear the same exact clothing, asexual clothing. So men and women have turned into a blob. So let's forget about that. So, anyways, yes, it would take Batman, or let's say, a soldier in a uniform, right? That's gonna make people hyper aware, and they're gonna look around, and then they're gonna go, oh yeah, I have civic responsibilities. Oh yeah, I'm a part of a species that's super empathetic towards each other. Oh, this is my fellow human being. Not even my fellow human being, but my tribe member, right? This is a person that's a part of my extended family, right? They're a brother or sister of my nation. It's it's not even to say that the fascist soldier, or the man in uniform, or the Batman, or the fascist Batman. It's not to say that they scare people into doing the right thing. It's just it takes something that carries the tribal staff to remind people of the nature that is already there, right? It's a very kind of fickle, complicated game. But yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this Batman in this instance is a perfect, fascistic, authoritarian metaphor. I mean, this is perfect. This is beautiful, honestly. This is why, if you want to have, like, for instance, a political party that wants to bring back morality, that wants to bring back, socially conscientious behavior, you need to have people that dress formally. They will say, oh, no Democrat or Republican dresses this way. Yeah, but no Republican or Democrat represents morality and, a socially conscious form of behavior, So if you wear things that and they say that the SS uniform really invoked this sense of what I'm talking about out of fear. It wasn't fear. I see someone in that uniform, I'm thinking, wow, they're a great human being. I respect them, right? I think that's an alteration. I think what most people felt when they saw people in those uniforms was love. Like, wow, this is a metaphor for my nation turned into human flesh. They're the mascot. This is cool. It's only fear when you're actually up to something nefarious. you know, and it's more likely that the people that wrote about that were the people that were very afraid, because everything that's been written about that is in a negative context. Um, you know, but yeah, no, that's interesting. It's just, yeah, no, I mean, this is right here. This is what fascism is all about.
Transformed the outcome. When Batman was present, offers of a seat to the pregnant woman jumped to 67%, almost an 80% increase. The researchers called this the Batman effect. The idea that an unexpected event, like spotting a superhero on your commute, makes people more alert to their surroundings. They suggest,
or a soldier in a paramilitary uniform, right? Or a party member that wears a party uniform that's distinct. Maybe it looks a little old-fashioned, right? Or maybe something that's sci-fi, right? Something to where it's like, oh, this guy is obviously representing something cultural. Maybe he has the traditional metaphor, but we 3D print like armor that looks like it belongs in the 23rd century, at a 3D metal printer. Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah, no, that's it's kind of like the early days of the SA, honestly. But yeah.
that a momentary increase in situational awareness can trigger pro-social behavior, like offering a seat to someone in need. And what's interesting...
Yeah, they're not aware. They, again, men and women wear the same clothing. So men oftentimes are not as socially courteous towards women because, yeah, and women will say, that's fucking disgusting. I'm a woman because I was born a woman, right? Because I have female biology. You can't just sell out being a woman to clothing and the way I look and wear makeup. Well, first of all, I don't believe women should wear makeup or have fake nails. Women are beautiful just the way they are. And no one can become female. You're either born female or you're not. But I can say this is, okay, yeah, you're biologically a woman, but how, people think culturally a lot of the times, which is, I guess, why people try to make the argument that gender is cultural, even though ultimately I don't believe in the term gender, because it was made by left-wingers to basically say that male and female sex doesn't exist, like people like John Money, for instance, who sodomized little boys. So when I use the term gender, I kind of feel gross using it, as I'm just thinking about that little boy that got forcefully sodomized by his brother at the behest of a supposed medical professional. But anyways, yeah, no, it's like subconsciously, right? Obviously, you're going to look at a woman in man's clothing, or a female in man's clothing, rather, and think, that's that's a female, or that's a woman, right? But you're not going to think that's a lady, right? You're just going to think, oh, she's wearing trashy clothes just like me. She probably doesn't want me to think of her as a female, all right? And a lot of people, it's funny. You get any regular average dude that was born in like the early 2000s like me, and you get like a crowd of men and women, and you all have them wear similar clothing, and you have them look at the crowd immediately, and that they're just going to see a bunch of people. That's all they're going to see. They're not going to see men and women. They're just going to see people. And then you have them look away, and it's like, all right, how many women were in there? They're going to be like, wait, what? How many women were in there? And they're going to be like, I have to, can I look again? No, you can't. How many women were in there? And they're going to give them the wrong number. You get men and women that wear men and women's clothing, and they're going to look over. They're going to be very socially conscious and more accommodating towards women, and more accommodating towards their fellow men. They're more likely to open the doors for a woman if a woman acts in a way that makes people pro-social towards women, right? And it's the same thing. If you and again, this just is more proof that everyone is racist. But if you have a situation where there's only white people of your same ethnicity, right? Because I don't know what the difference is if it's like a bunch of white people from different ethnicities. It might come about being the same thing, but that might just come down to culture. But anyways, and culture is an extension of phenotype. I don't care what you say. Watch Exofonte's video on that, which I'll leave in the link in the description. It's a good video. But what I do find interesting is if it's just a group of people of different races, subconsciously, as a human being without ideological influence, even with pro-multiracial ideological influence, subconsciously, you're going to think, oh, these are a bunch of strangers. Men and women be damned, black and white be damned. These are strangers and I'm alone. And and you're not going to have pro-social behavior, right? So I'm alone, right? There's no common religion. There's a Jew here, there's a Catholic here, there's a pagan here, there's an atheist here. And it's like, again, there's going to be no pro-social behavior. You don't see a Christian cross. It was funny too, because I was on the bus, public transport, and I never talked to these people. There's nothing to talk about. They're not my race, they're not my religion, they're not my culture. And then I see someone with a obvious Catholic cross, and I'm a Gnostic, so it's not really the best line to whatever, but I felt like having a conversation with Catholicism. Catholicism was on my mind, and you could say, oh, you just need a conversation starter. Yeah, but you need a conversation starter that is relevant, right? Anyways, my point is, like, this is basically why we need people to dress up like this. Like, we need this, not to make people afraid, but to make people look up and go, oh, okay. Obviously in this day and age, people would be afraid of this, which is fine. They deserve it. But, in the past, they probably wouldn't have. They'd been like, this is respectable. This is a real soldier. But, yeah. Now, I think it's important that we start doing this, where we start promoting socially active behavior by giving people something worth feeling reverence towards.
Thing is that people don't need to even consciously register this as a trigger. In fact, 44% of
most people are not conscious at all. I'm surprised people don't even realize this. The amount of people who are like, we're conscious, we're self-aware, and then you'll forget about this conversation. You'll forget about this video because you're not self-aware.
People who offered their seat later said they didn't even remember seeing Batman.
Yeah.
All of this just adds scientific proof to the idea, always be yourself. Unless you can be Batman, then always be Batman.
It's a perfect message. Except Batman's kind of a fucking pussy. But yeah, no, that's an interesting thing. Thank you.